Welcome to The Cynical Developer, the podcast that helps you to improve your development knowledge and career through explaining the latest and greatest in development technology and providing you with what you need to succeed as a developer. We've recently launched our Patreon page, which can be found at cynicaldeveloper.com/Patreon. If you aren't familiar with Patreon, it's an easy way for those who are interested in this show to help out by simply pledging a small amount each month in sponsorship. Now that could be as little as $5 a month, which is about £3.80, or as much as you like. You will enable us to dedicate more time creating more content to help you, including videos, more blog posts, and even more shows. So if you can, head over to cynicaldeveloper.com/Patreon and get involved. In this episode, we are starting our mini-series on the Time Bandits. So who are the Time Bandits? They're thieves in our everyday lives. They're trying to steal our time, stopping you from being productive and reaching your targets and your goals, and completing all your tasks and all that sort of thing throughout your day job. So this mini-series will outline them and give you ways to deal with them as well. So there are many Time Bandits, and we're going to be focusing on the 5 ringleaders, which are too much WIP, conflicting priorities, unplanned work, neglected work, and unknown dependencies. In this episode, we are going to address the first in this list, who is the big boss, which is too much WIP. So this thief is the leader of all the other bandits, and you'll see how all the other bandits lead back to him. They all have different elements that push you back to too much WIP. So what is WIP? WIP is work in progress. So too much work in progress is when demand exceeds capacity. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's put it into very simple terms, into a simple example. So you have 5 to 6 hours of productive time. Let's say 6 hours productive time available in any 8-hour working day. So that's 30 hours a week. And like I said, we'll keep this simple. You're 1 week from the deadlines, and you still have an estimated 60 hours worth of work with all the tasks that you need to get done. So you're not just working on one thing, you're working on lots of things. So in this example, you have double the demand to your plausible capacity, and therefore your demand exceeds your capacity. Because you have a lot of tasks to do, you'll also flip from task to task and try and get them all progressed at least somewhat before the deadline arrives, which means that you're not going to finish any of the tasks at all, and so everything is going to be delayed. And what are the key factors here, the indicators that you have too much work in progress or too much WIP? So this is a quick 4-pointer list. You need to context switch constantly. You're jumping between one task and another one. You start tasks before the one that you're currently working on is finished. You keep saying, yes, I'll get that done, to every request that lands in your lap. And work starts to become neglected. And this is the first sign of another bandit as well. This work that is being neglected becomes stale, and you forget what was needed or how you decided to solve it. So that becomes a problem. So how should you deal with WIP or too much WIP? And can you even stop it? Can you deal with it? So quite simply, you can start by saying no, and say no to any more work. So you may have to be a little bit more tactical than this or tactful than this, but a straight up no is often good enough. It'll make your managers ask, well, why? Why can't you do this? And you have your reasons. Just take a deep breath and tell them, you have to finish this task before you start a new one, otherwise nothing will ever get finished. And again, being a little bit more tactful may help you in this situation. But I like to be a bit of a straight shooter and just tell them how it is, really. So you might be able to get that task done if you compromise on quality. And nobody wants to do that. You don't want to compromise on the quality of what you are working on. So it happens, but that should be a last resort. You shouldn't compromise the quality for anybody, really. There are times when you have to, like I said, but make it apparent, tell everyone that is what the situation is. Cover your own ass and ensure that your line manager understands the repercussions of the choices that they're forcing on you. So another way, which I think is really effective, this is probably the most effective way to deal with WIP, is visualize it. It's fantastic. So it makes people aware. So you might be using a digital Kanban board or something else like Trello, VSTS, Jira, or one of the other platforms that are out there, but nothing seems to be as effective as a physical board. You get a whiteboard, one of these ones on wheels that you can stick in the office, put your Kanban board on it, draw it on there with markers, and use post-it notes to represent your tasks. Put the deadlines on them in big letters, the title of the task, and who the owner is. So that people can actually see on that board when they come into the room, come into the office, they see that board, they know what you're working on and whose work you're working on without them to annoy you and distract you. And you are going to get people come over and ask you to do other tasks, but after all, you're supposed to be working agile, right? So you can drop tasks and take new ones on constantly, can't you? Well, I suppose you can, but what you drop and what you take on is really not your decision. Don't try to make it yours. Tell people to go away and talk to the other product owners. Get them to decide what is a higher priority. And again, that's another indicator of one of the other Time Bandits' conflicting priorities, which we will cover in this mini-series as well. So making stuff visual like this will come up a lot for these bandits. People, for whatever reason, seem to relate to and understand a physical board better than a digital one. Okay, you might be duplicating some of your effort, but it really is worth it to get these people to understand, no matter how much of a programming god you are, you can't do everything. The next way of dealing with too much work in progress is something that isn't for everyone else, but it's for you personally. Become better at estimating. Better estimation of your time on tasks will help. Estimating does take a lot of practice, though, and a lot of experience. But if you are struggling to estimate accurately, take those tasks that you need to estimate, break them down into smaller tasks, into their component parts, make them more manageable, and put the effort and the time on those individual tasks, and then look at that as a whole of how long it's going to take you to do the main big task. So once you've done that, you can use these better estimates to work out what you can do in the available time. And I mentioned this in one of the previous episodes about being selfish, but don't work evenings and weekends simply to just get the job done. That will do you no favours, and the people around you will come to expect it. So don't be a pushover. You have to have a work-life balance, and the way that you do that is to use your time wisely and effectively. So we'll just run over those different points that we've made today, and that's visualize your workload, break tasks down into smaller chunks so that you can estimate them better, set your capacity limits and stick to them based on those estimates, and start saying no to new tasks when and where you can within its limits. And hopefully this goes some way to helping you deal with too much WIP. The visual stuff, as I've said, for me is the best way, because people come into the office, they see it on the board, they don't need to annoy you, they don't need to distract you from what you're doing, they understand what's going on, they can see what you're working on. And why people understand that better than the digital versions, I don't know, but they do. And I guess for the people in the office around you, it's easier for them to just look up and look at the board from where they're sitting or standing, rather than firing up the browser and going to whatever service you use for it. The next in this mini-series will focus on one that we've already mentioned, which is conflicting priorities. And if you're being pulled from pillar to post by program managers and product owners, this will be helpful for you. The Time Bandits are a stressful bunch, but together we can kick them into touch and you can become a better and more measured professional by applying the advice that I'm giving you in this mini-series. You can even apply this stuff to other things outside of your day job, to your everyday life. I use these methods to manage my spare time because I know I said about a work-life balance, and I'm horrendous for it. I'm really, really not good at managing that. I've always got to be busy and doing something. But as I say, I've used some of these tactics to help me a little bit. I've given up on tasks and projects, and I've started saying no to new things because these Time Bandits, they're eating away at my life, and they do take over, and I'm trying to do too much all the time. So sometimes you have to take that step back and say no and stop doing things. You can't do everything. But for now, thank you for listening to The Cynical Developer. I'm James Stoddart, and this was Too Much WIP, the first in the Time Bandits series. If you have any questions about this or any other episode, then drop us an email, a tweet, or leave a comment on the website where you can find all the resource links, show notes for each episode. And if you enjoy this episode, please leave a review on your favourite podcast platform, iTunes, Stitcher, whatever it is, and help The Cynical Developer to reach more developers around the globe.